Hello.
Hey.
How's it going, man?
It's going all right.
Howdy. Hey, does it think you're calling user 3 right now? Did you hit the, there's a pound and then your kind of user ID and then pound again? That should get you.
Yeah, let me try that.
Okay.
Weird as I came in too as a panelist, but I don't have video. Let me see.
Yeah, it sees you as a panelist. Oh, here we go. I can turn that on. There we go. I can turn on your ability to send video. So this doesn't refresh. We have some people joining us.
Hey.
Hi to everyone joining us. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. And Jeff, there you are. Hey, how's it going, buddy? Glad you could make it. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people right now on the works of getting on their way in. So welcome everyone. I correctly started the recording this time, so we will actually have this recorded, so we can people who ask and say what happened, we can catch them up and they can follow up. So we'll be incorporating a few of those little things that we do as we go from here. So very exciting.
Cool.
So welcome to everyone joining. If you want to give a shout out in the chats, we'd love to hear from you and any questions you might have. So this is our first kind of intro section. We're just going to be riffing here for a few minutes until about 5 minutes when we'll start with the actual content. But this is just us answering any questions, sharing thoughts, kind of introducing the whole idea. So yeah, I'm excited about this today. I've been looking forward to it for a bit. So. Again, I'll remind everybody that we are learning our way around our environment. We're figuring out what works and what doesn't work. So we're definitely open to feedback and suggestions of ways we can get better and improve going forward. This is not mine and Jeff's call. This is definitely a group call, and so this is a team effort. The only reason we have it set up this way is expecting in the future a large number of people. We want to make sure that we can manage it in a way that makes sense, right, and that we can actually have a sense of order, even if we have in the future 50, 100, 1,000 Agilists on here sharing information. So the format is merely this format for today because it's a way that we believe can scale, but always open for ideas and ways that we can move forward going forward.
Yeah, I think we definitely want to make this a little bit more interactive going forward in the future. Thinking about teeing up an Agile Lean Coffee session, which is kind of cool, and we could do it virtually. I have a real good templated format for that. And, you know, that's what it's all about. It's about making this more about the people that are attending and seeing what we could do to help improve each other's Agile coaching journey. So that's what the game plan is.
Excellent. I love it. In fact, right now, the plan is for our next meeting to follow some kind of a lean coffee kind of format. So that'll be exciting where those of you who haven't, maybe for those who haven't heard of what that is, do you want to just briefly kind of say what's the high level of what a lean coffee looks like?
So yeah, I mean, the overarching topic of the lean coffee is going to be coaching in the world of Agile, you know, and it's going to be a coaching topic, coaching Agile Lean Coffee, and what we'll do is we'll get together and people will present topics and we will vote on the topics, prioritize the topics, and then just like a pull-based system like Kanban, we'll pull them in one topic at a time, and the topic goes on an egg timer, and there's some discussion that's opened up around that topic, and then there's a vote to extend that time, to, you know, extend it a minute. And if there's, you know, not enough votes to extend it a minute, we move to the next topic. And hopefully, you know, from what I've seen, I've been to a few Agile Lean Coffees, you can get quite a bit out of it, and everybody gets the chance to participate and raise awareness to things that interest them the most. So it's quite engaging.
Excellent. Very good. I do want to encourage everyone, we will do our best today as part of our feedback that we've got in previous calls is to try to incorporate some more back and forth, some feedback, interaction with the audience. And especially if you're interested in later in the conversation, maybe adding to it using your voice. If you wouldn't mind, if you have that attendee code and you can hit pound, whatever your number is, and then pound, that'll merge your name and your call-in number in the WebEx. So that way, if I see that a certain person has raised their hand later because they have a point they want to make or a comment, I'll be able to unmute that person as opposed to trying to figure out what call-in user they are. That's a little bit more difficult. And if we can't get the audio working, we, of course, have the chat box, which we'll be utilizing throughout the presentation. In fact, while I'm speaking, I'm going to encourage you to use those, use the chat box, use question and answers, and that's part of what Jeff will be doing. So he'll be watching that and maintaining the conversation there. And if there's some points that maybe someone raised or something that someone asked, he'll be able to bring that up here in just a second so we can address it. So we'll be starting here in just about 1 minute. We want to start about 5 minutes past. Jeff and I realize the value of that. We're all busy people running from meeting to meeting. So we are going to start and end promptly at 5 after and 5 till, just to give you at least some little cushion to get in here and then some cushion to get to whatever next meeting you might have throughout the day.
Yeah, do I have the ability to ask questions or field questions, do you know?
You do. As a participant, I think if you open up either the chat or the Q&A window, you should be able to see those. They're little panels. You might have to turn them on.
Oh, yeah, I see it. I just, for some reason, I can't.
Oh. Well, that's no good.
It's grayed out.
Oh, that's something we're going to need to look into. I'll make a note to get other presenters.
Oh, cool. Renee was able to say something, so that's great. At least she could do it.
Good stuff. Cool. All right. Well, very good. Well, it's 5 past right now, so we're going to go ahead and let me refresh the list. Looks like we've got 10 people in here right now. Expect a few more to be coming in as we go forward. But I'm going to go ahead and advance this next slide. And, Jeff, why don't you take us through just the high-level concepts of what it is that we're even doing here.
Yeah, most certainly. And I, first of all, want to thank everybody that's on here for joining. My name's Jeff Kors. I'm here to basically facilitate this session, although Isaac does a tremendous job. It's why I wanted to partner up with him. He's really good at this stuff. But anyway, we're all on this Agile journey, and that's exactly what it is. It's an Agile coaching journey, and we can only get better, and we can help each other. And if you didn't attend the last one, or if you did, you realize that, there's a whole lot of things that you could do to improve. And by having a community like we have, that's the goal, is to improve it. So number one, first and foremost, we want to hear from you. We want to make this more about you. So use the Q&A, give us feedback, send us emails. If you want my email, I could give it to you. Isaac could give it to you. We could actually put it in the invite, and let's start connecting each other. And we're dedicated to finding highly focused topics. So if you have an idea for a topic, or you want to speak on a topic, or you have a thought, about something, please let us know. And this is mainly, like I said, Agile coaching. We definitely want to stick to that. It's all about that coaching journey. And we're interested in transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So we also want to create an environment that's safe and, more importantly, courageous. We'd like people to surface things that, interest them, and things that maybe you're having trouble yourself getting through. And we can all, as a community, help each other find solutions. And actually, he put down here, our goal is to find topics that Agile coaches tend to be routinely challenged with, and open up questions, answers, and discussions that can provide new perspectives to these often difficult or intriguing scenarios. And that's the exact thing, is people generally are complex. Computers, yeah, they might be complex. Certain engines in cars, they might be complex, but I don't think anything in the world is more complex than the human brain. So that's kind of what we as coaches kind of dissect, and we wonder what people are thinking and how to get the most out of people that they didn't even know that they had them in themselves. And with that, that is exactly what this is all about. So please participate. Please use the Q&A chat box and say whatever is on your mind. And by all means, feel free to reach out to us and give us topics or contribute in any way possible. And when we do our lean coffee, that's a virtual lean coffee, we will have it, so the next one, so it's a little bit more interactive and engaging, and we're going to be experimenting with that. And without further ado, I'll let Isaac take over and do his thing.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, Jeff. That's really exciting. I do want to just reiterate what he was saying there. You know, we are here to serve each other. This is our journey, and I completely agree with what he said, that the most complicated thing is a human brain, perhaps with the exception of a group of human brains being asked to work together. So it's something that we constantly are trying to advance forward in and become better at, so we can better serve our teams and our organizations. So we're going to get started. I'll walk you through a bit of what we're doing as we get into the presentation, but I want to start us with, skip the announcements. Jeff's here today, so the announcement was we were going to miss him, but I'm glad he's here with us. And so what we're going to do is start with a quote. And so I was able to do this last time. And Jeff, I'm going to go ahead and stick you on mute in the WebEx there, and then maybe turn off your webcam so that we can just be real, focused. I want to make sure that we're here. We're learning this tool too, by the way, so give us a lot of grace as we get started with how we do this thing. All right. Okay. So your quote for today: success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. So from Winston Churchill, don't think that, you know what, I failed, it's over, or hey, we made it, we're done. We got to keep going. We got to keep moving forward. We always want to keep improving. So we talk about continuous improvement as one of our values. We want to make sure that we respect that, and we always keep ourselves and our teams advancing and moving forward. So that being said, I'm going to share with you a little bit today around the concept of extreme ownership. So the big question is, what is extreme ownership and how can it help me? So we'll talk about this for somewhere in the vicinity of 10 to 20 minutes. And the plan is to leave some time for not only some reflection, but Q&A and a little bit of discussion. I would love to discuss, I'll talk some with Jeff, but if you have questions, I'd love to see if we could get some people off of mute and maybe have a little bit of back and forth of some experiences or some input that you might have, something that reflected and resonated with you. So be listening and look for that opportunity as we get down forward in the presentation to maybe engage with us and give some feedback. So 20 minutes around that here, and then about 20 minutes of feedback. And like I said, we'll wrap up and make sure we give everybody 5 minutes back so they can get ready for their next meeting or whatever comes next for you. So moving forward, speaker is me today. So I'm a CSM. I've got Agile coaching certification. I've also got Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. I am a student of success. I love things that are successful. I'll tell you a brief story. I was over in Ireland recently, and I got the chance to watch Riverdance. And I remember watching Riverdance, watching those many, many people on stage acting as one, being perfectly synchronized, being so sharp on their execution of their presentation. I recognized immediately the amounts of practice and skill that went into that, but something about that level of excellence and success was really exciting to me. And so I love finding that wherever I can find it, whether it's Riverdance, whether it's a development team, whether it's an organization, whatever it is, I love finding it, and I love learning what is it that makes it tick. A lot of times it's hard work, but also a lot of times there's these little nuances that as you begin to uncover those, they begin to add value to your personal journey and the journey of those that you're coaching. So my work history, originally spent some time working for the Department of Energy. I own a small tech consulting company that just kind of helps out, primarily focused in the space of nonprofits at the moment. And I'm currently employed at Sabre, which is a travel technology company. So it's a little bit about me. So we're going to jump into some content today. So what is it that we're talking about? Extreme ownership is a fundamental change in thinking. So think for just a second about what it is you do when you go into work, what it is you do when you get at home, what it is you do each and every day. How engaged are you with that process? And then tie that into How much ownership do you feel in those things that you do? So we're going to talk about extreme ownership. Also, some things need to change. With our teams and the people that we work with, a lot of times there's this sense of disengagement, and we'll go into a little bit of how we can change that in this concept of extreme ownership, how it plays out with it. And then I've got a few examples of what extreme ownership looks like. We'll go through some of those. And then the last point we'll look at is how do I apply extreme ownership to my coaching Agile journey? So we're going to go through all these topics as we jump into the content. So the first thing, why change? So I brought up the Scrum values here, which are courage, focus, commitment, respect, and openness. So these are all things that we want to be driving into our teams as we're promoting Agile, as we're promoting Scrum. We want to be encouraging these behaviors. Why? What's the point of encouraging these behaviors? Why not just let a group of people, a group of those individual minds get in a room and do something? Why would we try to drive these things? It's because we as Agilists and as coaches or Scrum Masters or product owners or whoever you might be joining this, we believe that these behaviors are what empower great teams. If you have a team that exhibits courage or focus or commitment or respect or openness, each one of these individually add to a team that can ultimately be wildly successful. So these are things that we want to engage into them. So how do we go about doing this? We have the desire to promote these Scrum values. What are some ways we can go about doing this? Today we'll look at the use of extreme ownership to do it. So let's step back a second. There's an age-old parable, right? And the parable goes like this. There is a person who is an owner of sheep. The person's an owner. They own 1,000 sheep. Those sheep are owned by that person, and they mean very, very much to that person. It's their livelihood. They invested in them. That's their future. That's what they're passing on to their kids, is that set of assets. But then you have the worker, the employee. This person doesn't own the sheep. This person is just the person who goes out in the field and watches it. And so the age-old parable says this: if danger comes along, who is going to be the one to stick with and protect those sheep if danger, a wolf, a dog, raiders, whatever it is, comes in the field and starts attacking them? Wouldn't the owner have more interest in protecting the livelihood of those sheep than someone who's merely a paid worker? And of course that makes sense, right? Like, we enjoy taking care of things that we feel personally vested in. There's no way to feel more personally vested than if it's your money. Just imagine that you bought a car. You care very much about that car. What about all the other cars on the road? Yeah, they're out there. You know, what if somebody lends you a car? Depending on how scary the person is, you may or may not care quite as much as you do for your own. But the point is, when you own something, when it's yours, you care about it more. You're more invested in it. And in fact, I would argue it drives more of those values that we want in the Scrum values. It drives those because you feel this sense of pride and personal possession, and you want to make sure you're taking care of those items, and you want to make sure that you're protecting them for the future. So the owner mentality, we'd like to see that not just in the person who owns the company, not just in the person who owns the project or the task. We'd like to see this owner mentality flow all the way through our organizations and all the way down to the frontline worker who's doing the work. Why would we do that? Because it begins to drive the behaviors. I'll go back a slide. It begins to drive these behaviors even better. If maybe the team has experienced some courage, some focus, some commitment, imagine what would happen if they started seeing themselves as an owner of that area, of their place of responsibility. You want to talk about self-organizing teams? Self-organizing teams are empowered to take ownership over those things that are directly influenced by them. All right? So who cares about success more? Is it the owner or is it the employer or the worker? So if we can drive more of that behavior into the workers, the owner mindset, we're going to see better results as we go forward. All right, so let's move on. We're going to pursue continuous improvement. That's one of our values as Agilists. So how different is extreme ownership? And so I would postulate that it is night and day difference. Extreme ownership is a shift in mindset. And I have a little bit later, I'll share the way my mindset shifted when I began to catch this understanding of extreme ownership. But before we do, let me share with you where some of these ideas came from. So I got this inspiration while going through the audio version of Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Lee Fabian. It's a great book. I highly, highly recommend it. I'm also going to include in the PowerPoint presentation a link to a quick summary deck. I've got a lot of words combined together. It's not the ideal PowerPoint presentation as we go through these points, but there is a fantastic summary deck at that link there, and I recommend you go and review it. What they do in the book is they walk through 12 principles of leaders, and they derive these principles from their experience and their stories as Navy SEALs. So each chapter they open up with some kind of a story, they pull out a principle, and then they give us their application to business. So we're going to go through these, we're going to actually step through them, and I'm going to talk to each one of them, some of what they say, and then some of my experience with them. And my hope for you is that you find a principle or a thought, number one, that can apply to yourself. Because if you want to change the world, you should start with looking at how you can change yourself. So my first challenge for each one of you is to find something in these next principles we look at that can impact the way you're doing work right now. So find something that's real and true for you. One of these next 12 items we go through, say that one resonates with me. I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to think about that this next week. I'm going to incorporate it into my daily work. Second thing I want you to look for is I want you to look for something that you get, you understand. Maybe it's the one that means the most to you, or maybe it's something that you can take and apply to a situation. Maybe one of your teams, maybe someone that you're coaching, or maybe a person that you live with or working with or helping out. Look for something that maybe you could say, hey, I've got a different way of maybe looking at that as we go through these 12 items, okay? So we're going to go through these 12. And you can jot down some notes, but I'm also, again, going to send out this PowerPoint to those who are on this call at the very end. So if you just want to watch and listen through, you can do that as well. But do take notes if you have any questions or throw something in the comment box down there. All right, so let's talk about extreme ownership. What does it look like? All right, number one, a leader must own everything in his or her world. So this concept comes down to the idea of giving responsibility and authority. A lot of times what happens is someone's given some responsibility, hey, you have to go do this, but they're not given the necessary authority to make the changes. And so for us as coaches and as leaders, one thing I want to encourage you to do is think about people that you're delegating work to. If you say, hey, I need you to go do this, for a person to really get into the sphere of leadership, and for a team, if you're coaching an Agile team, for a team to really become that self-organizing team, they have to own what's happening in their world. Now, in the SEAL companies, right, when they're on the ground and they're doing a fight, what's happening in real time at that very moment, that's their responsibility. They have to be owners of that. They have to make decisions, and they have to act, and they have to be decisive in the midst of what's happening. Now, of course, there's rules of engagement. There's commander's intent. There's their orders. There's all of these things that add value to it, but at the end of the day, what they're doing is they're responsible not to pass off the decision every other minute, get on the radio, hey, what should I do now? Hey, what should I do now? Hey, what should I do now? They're given a framework, and inside of that framework, they own everything inside of their world. So it's really, really important that we get this. It is empowering for us to look at what is happening and that we have control over and what we can own, and then realize those things that we can't own, and make sure that where you're leading in a space that you're going forward in, make sure that you're comfortable in that space, making decisions and being decisive. Okay, number two, there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. It's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. Now, to some, this might be like, no, there are really bad teams. Extreme ownership for a leader is about taking responsibility. And there's many examples. I'll give one that came from the Good to Great book by Jim Collins, and he talked about a great leader. And as he's talking about great leaders, he says a great leader is one who you have this mirror and window approach, where a great leader, when things are going well, looks out the window and says it's going well because of those guys out there. Man, they're doing a great job. And when things aren't going well, looks in the mirror and says, okay, what can I do better to empower my people, to give them what they need to succeed, to make the game winnable? And so conversely, you look at the other side of that, a poor leader would be one when things are going wrong, man, right over that window, look at those people out there, my goodness, they're messing everything up. And then when things are going right, look in that mirror, what a shining example of a great leader I am. not true. So those two concepts, make sure that where you are leading or where you have people who are leading, if you're a Scrum Master and you can see some people influencing a team, make sure they understand this concept of ownership means you own when things go wrong. As the leader of the team, you can own that. And you know what that does? It creates a cascading sense of ownership down the lane throughout your team. If the person at the top takes ownership of theirs, then the person underneath them can feel safe to take ownership of theirs, and it cascades down. But you say, the person directly above me doesn't take ownership when things go wrong. Well, then I would encourage you to let the change start with you. Let you be the one who makes a difference and let that cascade down from you. It's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. Very, very important there. Number 3, a leader must be a true believer in the mission if they expect others to follow. You've got to find a way. If you're leading a group of people, you're leading a team, or you're a Scrum Master, you have got to find a way to get in your heart what it is you're about to promote to your team. So if you have a principle, let's just take a Scrum Master, and you've got a principle that this is the right thing to do. Until you feel that sense of confidence, I believe this is the right thing for us to do, then don't go and say, let's all go do this thing. Take a second to step back and say, now, do I believe this, and how can I promote it? Now, of course, it's going to be very difficult. There are some things that as leaders you're asked to do that you don't get the option of saying, but that's not the way I would do it exactly. So in those situations, you've got to find a way to find something positive that you can get behind and support, because our teams need to see their leaders believing. All right, I'm going to move on, go a little bit faster. I've got about 6 minutes here. Ego clouds and disrupts everything. Leaders must leave their egos at the door. An ego is a dangerous thing. If you or a leader that you're around are in it for themselves, to make themselves look good, to look in that mirror and see that success reflected back at them, that's dangerous, because ego clouds decision-making. The decision-making goes through what's going to make me look good, or it disrupts everything. I want to go this way because I feel like this is the right thing for us to do, even when it might not be the right thing. So ego, don't let ego get in your way if you're a leader. Number 5, all elements of the team must work together, mutually supporting one another. That sounds like a self-organizing team. So each of the pieces inside of the team have to work together. And as a leader of a team or a group of people, that's partially or completely your job to make sure that happens. Find ways, use conflict resolution, find ways to get the team relating to each other so that they can work together, mutually supporting one another. That's how teams win. And as a leader, we're taking ownership of our teams. That's something we've got to make happen. I think this one's a really important point. Simplify as much as possible because it's critical to success. You can have a 1,000-page document that is really, really detailed, and especially fresh in the Agile space. When you start needing to make a change or you start needing to adapt, if you're stuck in the rigors of that 1,000-page document, wouldn't you rather have a simple idea? This is the general idea. And let me share this one concept I got out of the book that I thought was very profound. It's called commander's intent. So what they do, a team's going out, they have their mission. The commander would say, my intention is for you to go do X, Y, Z, ... So they made a plan. They had the idea of what they would go do, but they always kept that commander's intent in mind on the mission. And then if things went sideways or they had to make an adaptation, they said, you know what, what's the simple premise of what we're trying to do here? And they would pursue that. So find a way to make it simple for your teams or those that you're leading. Find that simple piece and say, here's what we're aiming for, and let's talk about the details, but at least we know generally where we want to end up so we can work as a team to get there. All right, moving forward. Leaders need to prioritize and execute. Relax, look around, and make a call. Sometimes life blows up around you. In their cases in the book, literally, they got caught in some firestorms where things were all blowing up. What you need to do, if you find yourself where everything's going crazy, you need to relax, take a deep breath, look around, make a decision. And that process right there, you just repeat it. So there's 100 things going wrong. Okay, relax, look around, find the most important one, make a decision. Take a big deep breath again, relax, look around, find the next most important thing, and make a decision. There's an adage of lion tamers, and when you've seen a lion tamer with the whip in the chair, one of the reasons why the whip in the chair works so well to keep the lion tame is because when they shove the 4 legs of the chair in the face of the lion's looking at all 4 legs and can't focus, and it's disorienting for the lion. If your work or your life is shoving multiple things in your face at the same time, stop, take a deep breath, force those to line up, and handle them one at a time. Make a call. You be the leader and take ownership of the task that needs to be done. All right, teams must be broken down into a small and manageable size, and this is key, decentralized command. A lot of times we want to say, well, bring all the decisions to me, bring all the decisions to this committee, bring all the decisions to whatever, as much as possible. Look for ways to push out command so that different people can make decisions. Ideally, each group will have the ability to make, I believe my phone is crackling or something's crackling. I apologize if that's me. Ideally, each team will have the ability to make decisions on their own and become autonomous. When you think about a self-organizing team, that's exactly what you're doing. You're decentralizing command and pushing to that team, here's the task, now go figure out how to do it as a team. And then leaders must identify a clear directive for the team. It's got to be clear. Go back to a previous point. It's got to be simple. Lead them forward. All right, 3 more, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Leaders must lead down the chain, communicating their strategic vision. Don't just say your vision. Look down the chain and make sure that's cascading down to the right people. So lead down the chain of command, communicating the strategic vision so everyone knows how their actions impact the whole. Leaders must make decisions quickly in uncertain situations. There will be times that you will not have all the information. You've got to make a decision quickly. So again, take that big deep breath, relax, look around, and be decisive. And lastly, leaders must balance discipline and freedom. So find that balance between this is the stuff that has to get done, but then also find that world where this is a space where you're free to make your decisions, be autonomous, drive the process or project yourself. So there's that. My 3 takeaways from this. Number 1, I'm in the driver's seat. I am responsible as a leader. I lead myself every day. I lead my attitude. I lead people around me, but it's my responsibility. So when I think about extreme ownership, it has to start with me realizing I'm in the driver's seat of me. And I think it's very important for us to recognize extreme ownership starts when you realize that you have power to do something about yourself, and you do. Each one of you do. That's my first takeaway. I'm in the driver's seat. My next takeaway is pretend that you're undercover. A while back, I had an epiphany while I was working at a company, and that was imagine if I went into work and I had the mindset in my mind that I'm actually the undercover boss. I actually own the entire company, but I'm undercover. Nobody knows it's me. How would I act? How much would I care about quality? How would I lead people better? How would I communicate strategic vision better? How would I be really invested in everything that happens, how customers are treated, how my teams develop, how each person grows if I actually owned the company? So for me, extreme ownership has the opportunity to say, I'm going to pretend in my mind's eye for today that I'm the guy who owns this company. Nobody knows. I somehow got myself secretly inserted here as an undercover boss. It changes your mindset. So try that one day. Try that exercise. Come in and say, I own this place, but I can't tell anybody that I own this place, but I'm going to act like I do. It changes your perspective and I think gives you the ability to understand how extreme ownership can help you. And then lastly, be the difference. So this is a prayer from Reinhold Niebuhr. I believe it's how you pronounce his last name, but I think is really important. It's, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. There are some things in your world that you can exercise extreme ownership over. There are some things that are outside of your sphere of control. And if that happens, don't focus and fixate on those things. Find the things where you can be the difference, take ownership of those, and make a difference in that space. So I'm going to end up with a few questions here that I just have for you. So I'm going to bring these up here and ask you to consider some of these. And I'm going to pull Jeff back into this and we're going to wrap up. I'm about 3 minutes and 30 seconds long, so my apologies for that. So Jeff, let's spend a bit of time talking through some questions, and I want to make sure that our attendees, we have 15 people right now who are joined with us. I want to make sure we have a chance to maybe talk through some of these. So, Jeff?
Yeah, sure. So you got a few questions up here right now. But first off, something came up this week that had to do with extreme ownership, and it came from a developer on my team. And he was telling me about an experience he had within the Publix organization. I think that was the company, and they had a philosophy there, and the philosophy was extreme ownership. And it was the thought process of, if a problem fell in your lap, you don't merely just say, sorry, not me. You take extreme ownership of this problem by making it your problem and going the extra distance to help that person find the solution they need and pass it off to a rightful and willing party in the utmost customer service. And you own that. You own the company. You own that decision, and that you can control. So that was just amazing that he said that, and that's just such a great glaring example of the type of cultures we should try to foster, are ones where I'm not just going to bounce somebody off of me because I don't have time for them, but one where we serve other people, we consider other people, we stop what we're doing and we say, you know what, that's not me, but I think I know who may be able to help you. Let me get you in touch with this person, and let's make sure that person is the right person to take care of that solution. So if I were to add anything on top of that, I learned that this week, and I just thought it was awesome. It was very powerful.
That's fantastic. Let me say onto that, when you're talking about that, it reminds me of a story I read about Taco Bell's process that they recently were going through to try to increase customer service. And this was, when I say recently, it was years and years and years ago that I read this. But what they decided to play with is the idea that they enable or empower every one of their employees to solve a customer's complaint. I think it was up to $5. And so it's a simple little shift, but if you think about what that did, is it empowered each one of those employees, instead of saying, oh, your order wasn't right, I'm sorry, to be able to say, oh, I'm sorry, what's wrong there? Here, you know what, let me throw in one of these and let me fix it by giving you this. And it gave them the ability or the authority to really take ownership, and customer service through the roof went up, because not only were customer service better, but think about that employee. How much more satisfying is it to be able to take ownership and say, let me fix that for you. I know that I can do this. I know I'm not going to get in trouble, versus the person who, okay, I can't because there's a rule that says I can't, and just having to push it off, not because they want to, but because of a process or a rule, like you're talking about, that prohibits them from reaching out and taking that ownership. So very interesting.
Yep, and I'll flip this on its head real quick, because this is an Agile coaching thing. And people are probably thinking, how does this relate to extreme ownership? And I'll put this out there for you. If you don't empower extreme owners and get that trust, what are you going to coach? They're not empowered to do anything. They can't own something. And as we step back and somebody does something, you want them to make a valiant effort. If they fail, then that is an ultimate coaching opportunity. And even if you think of the other side of that, if someone has a great success, that too is a coaching opportunity, because now you're picking their brain, like, how did you do that? What drove you to do that? How would you influence someone else to do that? And all of a sudden, these powerful questions start to come to the surface on how you can make that work organization a better place by leveraging the good example that someone exuded by doing that extreme ownership deed and taking that control. One other thing, you pointed it out in one of your earlier slides in the deck, and I put it in the chat, but Jocko Willink, who is an ex-Navy SEAL, he actually has a really good podcast called Jocko's Podcast. So I listen to that quite frequently, and the guy has a pretty unbeatable mind, but that is their thought process. So anyway, enough babble and fun stuff. I'd really like to see if we can't open this floor up to somebody, whoever wants to chime in. There should be a little thing there where you can simply raise your hand, and if you have a comment or you'd like to ask Isaac or myself a question, by all means, press that little raise hand icon that should be down where the participants are, and we'll pull you off mute and give you the floor for a second or two.
This is cool because this is a brand new thing for us. We're learning about our technology and growing every time that we do this. So first chance someone can be our first speaker, our call-in speaker. I don't see any hands going up, so they might just really enjoy the back and forth of you're in my brain. I'm sure that's
and by all means, if you hit the hand up thing and we don't see it, keep in mind we're experimenting with this. Just go into the chat box and just say, hey, I hit that icon and for some reason you're not answering.
You guys didn't see it, and there's this giant red thing blinking, and we're like, no, I don't see it. Well, I guess no one has anything. It's the beauty of technology these days. Tell you what, it's incredible that we can all dial in here and share this information with each other and have a recording. I love what we're doing.
So by all means, we encourage you to be courageous, and love to hear an example that maybe some of you guys have about showing extreme ownership, or are you in a situation where those around you lack extreme ownership, and could this be an area where you could maybe step up and coach and convey this philosophy?
Oh, Jay says he has a comment. Sweet. I'm going to unmute you, Jay, I believe. Let's see. Can that work?
See if this
it works. I can hear you.
You can hear me. Cool. Thanks. Yeah, I dig everything that increases our learning and understanding about culture and leadership. Something to be aware of that really kind of woke me up to this, because I've read a lot of books like this too. But this guy by the name of Robert Keegan, and he did some pretty extensive research into cognitive development in adults. And so one of the things that they found is that as we get older, we get more capable, obviously. But about 70% of the population is still operating what they call the reactive mind or the reactive self. And in that mode, what happens is our actions and our egos are very closely linked. So in other words, the checking your ego at the door thing it's like a good admonition, but cognitively, the majority of adults don't have that ability yet. So I would just kind of call out and think about that, because I think some of the research about what people are actually capable of is useful to consider as we coach, because we can't coach above the level of somebody's cognitive capacity. In other words, if their emotional development is at a certain point, you have to kind of respect and operate at that level and frame things at a level that they can grasp. So I just throw it out there as something to consider, because it wasn't something I was aware of, and it's kind of changed my coaching approach. So kind of more of an FYI.
Thanks, Jay. That's fantastic. I'll tell you what, so that links back in my mind to Jeff and I were able to be a part of a call with Lisa Adkins recently, and one of the things she raised was this concept of not coming in as an Agile coach or a Scrum Master with a sense of arrogance. And I thought it was interesting that she raised it. Sometimes we come and we are the answer carriers, the answer bearers, and we just come in and make a sweeping statement, if you would just do this, without really recognizing that exactly what you said, perhaps the person or the group isn't at the place where that cognitively resonates with them, and the next thing you know, you're just coming off as the big gorilla in the room, telling people to do stuff that they can't quite wrap their minds around or understand. I think that's an excellent point, and thank you for raising that we should be aware where that person's at and make sure that we don't try to shove something where they're not ready to receive that, and there's not that openness to receive that message. Very cool.
You know, I just came into this whole entire presentation speaking with a very intelligent person in my organization that's got a PhD. I think her PhD is in clinical psychology, actually. And she was just telling me it's amazing that so many people claim to have certain soft skills. And when you think of EIQ, which is the emotional intelligence quotient, one of the things is self-awareness and self-recognition and the ability to control oneself. And that just goes like hand in hand with that. So when you talk about check ego at the door, this cognitive approach just really isn't even there, because some of the people that are checking in, like me, I could go, okay, cool, I filibuster things, I talk a lot, I got to muzzle myself, and I have self-awareness and control, and I will constrict and restrain. Some of the people that have to check the ego at the door just don't happen, not that they're not capable of it, they just don't think they have the ego, you know, and that's kind of what we were talking about. So Jay, that was a great thing to bring up, man. It's amazing, and something great for us coaches to really take into consideration is that even the people that we deal with all won't have the same level of soft skills and EIQ, and we have to understand that.
Excellent. And so Jay got a hold of me via the chat, so anybody who's trying to get a hold of one of us to pull you off mute, chat's a great way to do it. So we've got these 5 questions up there, and I would love it if somebody, if you don't have a comment or something else to add, just like what Jay did, if anybody wanted to maybe take a shot at answering one of these questions or throwing their feedback out. So we'll give maybe a second or 2 for that, see if anybody wants to take a stab at one of these. It's kind of like table topics. If you're a Toastmaster, this is kind of what we do. We throw out a question. You have to be kind of on the spot, think through it. One thing I know about coaches and Scrum Masters, we're rarely those who are caught with few words. So normally we have an abundance of words to say. Well, Jeff, why don't you pick one of these while we're see if someone else wants to jump in and join the conversation. Why don't you pick one of these and maybe answer it for us? Any of these that stand out to you? Oh, wait, I see a hand up. Oh, my goodness, there's a hand waving at me. Wait, we'll come back to you, Jeff. I'm going to try to unmute David. Let's see if we can do this. David?
Hey, I think I'm unmuted.
You're unmuted.
Yeah, thank you.
The hand feature worked. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. And actually, I think this is probably one of the biggest things for me that I got was you had a list of, I think, 3 quotes, or 3 things to remember. And the one about I'm in the driver's seat is something I constantly have to remember, because sometimes you just feel like you're buffeted one way or the other, and you know, life's taken over. But you know, if you just remember that you're in the driver's seat, you can make choices, you've got control. That helps center, at least me, when I remember that. But sometimes I have to be really intentional about remembering it.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you very much for sharing, David. That's wonderful. Good takeaway. Appreciate that. Excellent. Very good. Jeff, any thoughts? We've had a really good attentive rate. Everybody's been very attentive. Check feedback result. Cool. I'm just checking this out. Jeff, are you on mute maybe? Am I on mute? No? All right. Well, Jeff went dark. So let me look at these here. Let me see if there's one that I can answer. We've got about 4 minutes left before we start to wrap this thing up. And like I said, rounds home. Make sure you have 5 minutes going. So what's something you can take ownership of, something you can't change and you let go of? What is something you can simplify right now? I think I'll grab that one. What is something you can simplify right now? We are in the middle. Oh, no, Jeff lost his ability to speak. I apologize, Jeff. I don't know what happened. We will get it back somehow, hopefully shortly. The situation we're going through right now, we've got a major project and effort where there's a whole lot of moving parts. There's moving everywhere. And for me, I think what I need to go and simplify is I need to simplify our lines of responsibility and accountability. What's I think a bit causing the churn, there's a number of things that are spinning and churning right now, but I think not knowing who's the person to make a call when it comes time to make a call. Hey, I need this call made. Who's the person with the responsibility and the authority to make this call? Right now, it's a little bit of spaghetti. To find that answer, you'd probably have to go ask someone who'd probably point you to someone who'd maybe point you to someone else. So I think for me, the thing I can simplify right now for several of the teams that I'm working on would be to clarify responsibilities. This is where you are, this is what you have next, and this is what you have next. So that people are clear of who to talk to and what each person's role is. Because when you don't truly know your role or who's got the lead role, it can lead to some running around with your hair on fire in the midst of a crisis trying to solve the problems. Cool. So we got Jeff back. Jeff said might not be a bad thing that he's gone. No, we definitely miss you, Jeff. When you're not here.
You can hear me?
Yeah, you're back now. We got your audio back.
Oh, who was it that was speaking? David?
That was David. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome, man. He's so spot on. I was just going to say, I think of great people in this world, and there may not be some Notre Dame fans out there, but Lou Holtz had said about being in that driver's seat and having the keys. He also had that philosophy where he said, you have 3 decisions to make. Every problem is your problem. You may want to externalize and say, that's that person's problem. But he said, no, you got the decision within you to be in that driver's seat, and it stems from 3 things. You could change it, you could decide conscientiously to live with it, or you could leave it. All 3 of those decisions are within your court. What do you do? Sitting and complaining about that decision and not doing anything is not an answer. So choose one of the other 3, and boom, you got the keys, you're in the driver's seat, and go.
That's awesome. That's true. True word there. All right, well, let's kind of move into our wrap-up time here. So I have some connect with me information. So this is just if you want to connect with me there. Here in a later slide, we will have a slide with our emails. I found this Dilbert. I thought it was very applicable to my current situation. Look at this new Agile thing to deal with unpredictable events and things we cannot control in our projects. We can prioritize, reduce scope, change requirements at any time, and increase the chances of success of the project. And of course, the boss says, look, this is your new project with a fixed deadline, fixed scope, and fixed quality. You can be agile inside this triangle. And unfortunately, sometimes that's the reality of our situation. It goes back to what do you have control over? What can you change? And what can't you? So just in wrapping up here, so we talked through there, we will have our hard wrap up. Just again, let me jump to our last slide here. Our next meetup that we're going to do, we've got Tuesday, September 27th is going to be our next call, and the plan for that right now is to do a Lean Coffee Roundtable. We don't have a defined speaker, but I love that Jeff has some experience in that space, so I expect him to kind of lead or potentially reach out to someone and get them to co-lead it or work through it. I want to again extend the invitation to be a part of this. This isn't the Jeff and Isaac show. This isn't, how smart are we and what can we say that's intelligent. This is we're on an Agile journey. As Agile coaches, we recognize we're learning and growing. And to look back, the first time I ever heard Agile as a process and where I am today, it's a journey. And so we want to create a community, a tribe, if you will, of like-minded people who say, you know what, I see I'm here today. I know I want to be somewhere else in the future, and I want to share the journey with some like-minded individuals. That's what this is all about. So if you want to be a part, please connect with us. Share the link to the next one with your friends. When I send out the deck to this one, I'll include a link to sign up for the next Lean Coffee Roundtable. Jeff, any other final thoughts as we start to wrap up here?
Great job. Thanks for giving that presentation today. Hey, the few that chimed in today, that's great. That's what we want. I think we're going to push and strive towards making this more about an environment where you could surface things and come to this Lean Coffee Roundtable. Think of some ideas, like just to give an example, one might be how do you know the right time or opportunity to step in and coach. And boom, that hits front and center. We have a couple minutes to talk about it, and the table's open for anyone to, you know, give feedback on that. And we really look forward to it. And please tell other people to join us. The more people we have and the bigger think tank, the more ideas that brew. And this is great, man. So I really hope to see all these same people on September 27th.
Excellent. All right. Well, everybody, we're going to give you a little bit more than your 5 minutes because we're going to take ownership and make a decision here. We'll give you 6 and some spare change. So, again, I just want to say thank you very much. I know Jeff feels the same way. We do appreciate each one of you. And so at this point, we're going to close the meeting. Thank you all. Have a fantastic rest of your week. And Agile on. See y'all.